Welcome to the Separation Anxiety in Dogs Decoded podcast. I am your host, Ness Jones, and we'll be deep diving into all things separation anxiety. But before we get started, please make sure you like this episode, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications so you never miss another one. And don't forget, if you are interested in joining my easy step-by-step training program to resolve separation anxiety in your dog, you'll find the link in the show notes. Now let's get started. Hello. Today we are going to be talking about whether you can teach an old dog new tricks. Now I am specifically talking about separation related behaviors, but we can branch out a little bit and talk about other things as well. So the answer to the question is yes, you can teach an old dog new tricks. And I've had several clients over the years with seniors who have successfully completed my program. Now, the first one that springs to mind is Gus. Now, Gus was 10 years old and he had had a lifetime, 10 years of scary absences. So every time his mum would leave, he would panic, he would bark, he would cry, and he would howl. And he was a very unhappy dog. And that was his experience of being by himself. When they started working with me, he was put on medications, but in the initial stages, there was no time for that medication to have started working. Generally, and I am generalizing, please don't take this as literal, because it does depend on the dog, but generally prescribed medications from a vet can take between 4 to 8 weeks, depending, to start really working in the system. But so Gus went very, very, very quickly, surprisingly quickly, considering his history of being home alone and being fearful. He flew through that program. He was an outlier, I have to admit, because he got from 0. So I did a threshold assessment with him. He had 0. He could not even face the person walking out the door without a reaction. So we got past that and then we gradually built it up, but he got up to 4 to 5 hours in 8 weeks. Now that is very, very unusual. Obviously the medication would have helped with that as well. So 10 years old, lifetime of scary home alone time. And he actually, once he learned that it was okay, he did remarkably well. Then there was Benji. So Benji was different. Benji was also 10 at the time of training. He had been fine by himself. So he didn't have that history of being home alone and worrying about it. But when his mum was out one day, there was a nasty, nasty storm. I think it was in the evening, off the top of my head, I can't remember. And obviously that storm impacted him greatly. I guess he was a little bit traumatized. It must have been very, very bad. And thereafter, he was really struggling to cope with home alone time every time his mum left, every time his mum left. So he went through the program. He actually probably took longer than Gus, despite previously being fine. Very dedicated guardian, and gradually went through the program and was able to be left by himself as well. So that's 2 examples of senior dogs or 10-year-old dogs that, for different reasons, couldn't cope with home alone time and came out the other side. But the first thing we have to do with a senior dog is acknowledge their age. And it's important, and I suggest doing this for every dog anyway, but for seniors even more so, is going to your vet and ruling out any health issues. So particularly if this is a new behavior for a senior dog, we do need to rule out things that can impact their ability to be home alone. And that can be pain related. So if a senior dog has got arthritis, that can make it harder for them they need kind of a little bit like I need my mum, for want of a better way of saying it. So pain can certainly impact them. So can gastro issues, allergies, and that goes for all dogs, obviously. But we do need to look at senior dogs and say, is there something going on that we need to know about? And so that could be hearing loss or eyesight loss, which, you can imagine that would make your dog feel more uncomfortable with being by themselves, but also cognitive decline. So are they struggling more mentally with their cognitive function? And that could be also impacting them. So we need to know these things. And that's why taking your dog to a vet is pretty important. It's also helpful if we have an idea of what has caused the separation anxiety. So I don't think we ever knew with Gus. He just had that history. With Benji, we knew there was a specific event that traumatized him. But also, I just got off a call today, in fact, with a lady asking about my programs. She also has a 10-year-old dog. And this struggle with home alone time was a new behavior. So he actually developed it after the COVID lockdowns ended. So he was fine previous to COVID. No worries at being home alone. Then COVID hit, he had 24/7 access to mum. Then life, of course, went back to normal. We were allowed to go about our normal daily lives, and he has been struggling and he barks and doesn't like it. But this lady thinks perhaps it's not based so much in anxiety as it is in frustration. Now, if it is based in frustration, that could be, well, mum, I'm so used to coming with you. Why aren't I coming with you? Now you're leaving me here by myself, but. So if we've got some sort of idea of why the dog is doing that, it's helpful. The training may look similar regardless, but a dog that's suffering from FOMO slash frustration, so fear of missing out, FOMO slash frustration, hopefully will go through a program quicker than a dog that has severe anxiety to being left by themselves. The thing with this lady, though, is she's not had a camera on her dog to be able to see what it is doing when she's not there. So that's an important piece of the puzzle, knowing what the dog is doing when you're not there. What does its body language look like? What behaviors is it doing? And if we don't have that camera on, we don't know. We don't know if there's any subtle signs. We don't know if the dog's pacing. It's just a big question mark. So if we, to do this training anyway, we need that camera so we can see if the dog is building up and becoming more and more anxious or frustrated. So we do need that camera. So that's the first point. I have talked about cameras and the importance of observing a dog in a previous episode, so I'm not going to dwell on that now, but go back and have a listen to that one. I shall put a link up at the end of this. But yes, so knowing why the dog is doing it or if there's been a particular cause is helpful, but again, it's not essential to know that if we simply don't know, because the training is going to look the same. We're going to use a gradual exposure therapy and desensitization training to safe absences only. And then we just build up that time gradually, gradual exposure, building up, helping the dog feel confident with that home alone time is very, very important. So getting back to the seniors, there is no reason why an older dog can't learn to be okay when you walk out the door, when you leave them behind. There's no reason. So just because a dog is older, there should not be a reason not to help them feel better about it. Obviously, you can opt for management instead. For example, finding cover for your dog when you're not there. If that is an easier option for you rather than doing the training, especially with an older dog, or do the training. But management can be the other option, of course. Because we don't want to walk out the door thinking, my poor dog, what is it going through? What is going to happen? Is it going to damage my house? But what more importantly, well, that's important, but what is the dog doing? Is it suffering? Is it anxious? Is it scared? Is it fearful? Another thing to think about when we're talking about this issue is confidence. So for me, this training, I talk about safe absences a lot because that's what we want the dog. But those safe absences lead on to your dog becoming more confident with home alone time. And a confident dog is more likely to cope with home alone time. So what can we do to help our dogs become more confident? I actually like enrichment activities for this and helping the dog learn new things. So learning is really good for a dog, senior or not, and being mentally challenged. because when they solve a problem, whatever that might be, it could be something to do with sniffing or finding something, or whatever it is, whatever that enrichment activity is that is mentally challenging for your dog, it builds confidence. Also getting them up on things and helping them solve, the problem of a weird surface or steps or whatever it is that your dog might find challenging. But anything that is mentally challenging for your dog has a twofold effect. It makes them an optimist. It builds up their confidence, but it also helps them be more calm. It promotes a calming mindset. And of course, when your dog is ready to rest and relax, that is the optimal time to train, because especially when we're building those foundations. So I've talked about this in previous episodes, but when we start out, we want to build solid foundations. They're the building blocks upon which everything else is placed. So we make it as easy for the dog as we possibly can. And we build up lots and lots and lots of those safe absences, gradual exposure to longer and longer times. And then that dog learns to feel confident when they're home alone. So we're creating an environment where the dog is ready to rest and relax, so we can build up those safe absences. We worry about complicating it down the track, but initially we want to build those safe foundations, those solid foundations. And that means we want a dog that is ready to rest and relax. And so to do that, by providing them with those mental challenges, those enrichment activities, we create that calm mindset, and then they are ready to rest and relax. I talk about resting and relaxing all the time. It's so important. That's where foundations, they're everything. Build the foundations and worry about complicating it down the track. And yeah, mental challenges, they're good, and they actually improve cognitive. There's significant cognitive benefits. It's the same for us as we get older. We shouldn't just sit in front of the TV for hours on end. We should be doing things. We should be challenging ourselves. We should be learning new things. It's fun. It's good for us, and it keeps our little brains going. And then, of course, it helps us be ready to rest and relax. So it's a good reason to do those enriching activities. And also remembering, with a senior dog, depending on, their health and all that sort of stuff, they may not be able to go for that 5-mile, 5-kilometer walk that they used to. Maybe they're just happy to dawdle up the street and come back. Okay, so maybe we can't give them the exercise that we might like to help them. So then what can we do to help them mentally? What can we do to still challenge them, still keep them thinking, still keep them using their brains, giving them that confidence because they've solved the problem, and helping them be calm as well. So good things. But yes, if you have an older dog and you're not sure whether you should do the training, hopefully this will help you decide whether it's worthwhile or not, or adding in something, making sure you go to the vets, of course, adding in some extra enrichment activities, or are you going to opt for management? If you have any questions that you would like me to answer on this podcast, please email hello@nessjones.com and just put podcast question in the subject area so I know where to put it. But I'm happy to answer anything that you throw at me. You have been listening to Ness Jones on the Separation Anxiety in Dogs Decoded podcast. Don't forget to check out the show notes to learn more about my programs and how I can help you with tailored training. Until next time.